Cameron in Alabama, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Cameron.
Hey, Ben. I just want to say first off that you're one of my inspirations, and I really enjoyed your Right Side of History book.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
my question for you today. My question for you today is going to be off a little bit of the coronavirus topic, get on to a little bit more of a cultural level. What is your view on what's your advice for someone like my age? I'm 27 years old, and we're living in sort of what I believe is a relaxed sex culture. What is your what is your advice on that too? Because I feel like you said a long time ago at Young Americans Foundation that people use sex as it being disposable, and I'm just curious, what's your advice for someone in my age now in the dating world? Obviously, right now, it's not a good idea because of the coronavirus, but in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say that I have never seen a better attempt to dissuade casual sexual encounters than coronavirus. It's pretty. if that was God's plan, I'm not sure I like the plan, God, but it's effective. It's very effective. Like human beings just never seeing each other ever again. But in any case, as far as the general tenor, as I've said, if you want to date at these times and you are dating for something more than that, then you really ought to be dating in a religious context or at the very least in a committed context. And you can do that by simply saying straight up front with the girl that you are interested in a committed relationship and then tailoring your conversations toward that commitment. Everybody thinks that finding TV shows in common or things you like to do together, that's the most important stuff. Here's the truth. 90% of people like TV. 90% of people like Disneyland. 90% of people like long walks on the beach, right? That most people have things that are fun in common. But guess what? Marriage actually and dating, these are not actually times when you spend 90% of your time doing fun stuff. One of the things that I always found weird about shows like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette is they'd be like, oh, the best way to know somebody is to go on a hot air balloon ride with them. And I think I have never been ever on a hot air balloon ride with my wife, ever. Nor are these people, if they ever got married, going to spend more than one day out of presumably the next 60 years in a hot air balloon. Why in the world are you tailoring all of these dates to things that will never happen again, nor would they ever happen in real life? You know what real life is like if you want to date seriously? Real life is you go and you see the person every single day, and you sit next to them when they are working, and you talk with them, and you get lunch with them, and you hang out with them, and you go do favors for them, and you get to know them really well. So I dated my wife for about 3.5 months before we got engaged. We started dating September 5th of 2007, and 2007, and we got engaged on December 22nd of 2007. So whatever that period is, that was our total dating time before we got engaged. And honestly, it was a pretty packed time because I made a commitment after the first couple of weeks when we dated, once every 3-4 days. I made a commitment that I was going to go and see her every single day. And so after work, I would go and I would see her every single day. And if she had to work in the library at UCLA, I would literally bring her a meal and I would sit there and I would do my work on one side of the table and she would do her work on the other side of the table. And I wouldn't bother her because she had work to do. And then we would take a break for 15 minutes and hang out and go back to doing work. Or if she really, needed to focus, I would drop the meal and I would leave. Because you know what? That's kind of like what marriage is. That kind of is what marriage is. I haven't seen my wife at this point for a month. I'm not kidding. For the last month, I've not seen my wife. Since our baby was born, I have not seen her at all. Why? Well, because number one, she is keeping odd hours because she has to nurse the baby. Number two, I have 2 other kids. One got the flu. Then a week later, another got the flu, which means I have to keep them both separate from my wife and the baby so the baby doesn't get the flu. So I have seen my wife in the last month for a combined total of approximately 7.2 minutes. But the reason that the relationship can survive that is because I have the security of knowing that life was like that before, and I've spent all sorts of time with her. You know what's the thing we're not doing right now? Going on a hot air balloon. So if you are worried about, dating for commitment, then think about dating for commitment in realistic ways as opposed to what's the most romantic thing I can think of for every single date? What if I spread a rose petal lane down the middle of Main Street in Disneyland every single, that's not real life. So make dating more like real life, and then you're more likely to get a partner that you want for real life.
Okay. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. Again, you're a real inspiration to me, and I follow the Daily Wire all the time. It's basically one of my main news sources.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Cameron. Really appreciate the call. Jim in Illinois, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Jim.
Hey, Ben. I have a question about COVID-19. So I'm from Illinois, and obviously our economy is pretty much already a trash chute. Our governor has already said that we're hurting to just keep unemployment benefits up because so many businesses are closing. So in your opinion, should we keep everything locked up and people inside their houses? Or will there come a day when we're just going to have to open things back up and let the disease kind of spread and get immunity, as horrible as that may sound?
I mean, I think that once we hit the summer, we're going to have to open things back up. Really what nobody is saying is that the great hope is that by early May, mid-May, that the virus wanes because it has burned through either a lot of the population already, or because summer kills it off, or that we develop some sort of mitigating medications, or that we have increased our ICU and ventilators so much that, the people who need treatment can get treatment. But there's virtually nobody who expects that we're going to prevent tons and tons of people from getting this over the course of the next year. I mean, this is something I've been harping on, which is that none of the models suggest that people who are avoiding getting it right now are not going to get it in the fall. So the question is, how long can we keep this up? What's the purpose of it? Presumably the purpose is to buy us some time so that we can deal with it. But yes, people are going to go back to work. I think all of the talk about how we're going to have mass testing and tens of thousands of tests and serology tests so we know who's immune and all this, like, I can't see that being ramped up fast enough for summer. I think that in all likelihood, we go to sort of a rough and ready style of employment where everybody goes back to work. People continue to social distance. If you can work from home, you continue to work from home. And if you are under the age of 65 or under the age of 60 and you don't have pre-existing conditions, we're going to assume you don't have the virus. If you do get sick, you go home for 14 days. And that's pretty much how things go up until we have a vaccine. Because this is not sustainable. It just is not. We're not going to be locked up for the next year, 12 to 18 months until we have a vaccine. Good luck. I think it will come to an end. I'm hoping that the mitigating efforts are enough, but it could be ugly for the next few months. I do not think this is going to extend. I've talked to, at this point, probably dozens of doctors. I would say that virtually everybody agrees that by early summer, people are going to be getting back to work in some shape, fashion, or form. So I would assume by early summer, they mean like tail end of May, early June.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking my call.
I really appreciate it. All righty. Renee in Chicago, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Renee.
Hey, Ben. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of yours, but I wanted to call in just to say I feel like I would like you to provide a little more perspective. I feel like you're not, in my personal opinion, of the governmental response to the virus that we're all experiencing, and balance that out and compared with the economic impact to all the lockdowns, as well as the rationale behind those lockdowns being primarily, from what I'm seeing, being based on models, and all of the information that's coming out when folks are contrasting the projections for hospitalizations, ICU beds, for example. The actuals are coming in way under what the projection models have been coming in. So in my opinion, that's not that strong of a rationale to take away basic liberties. I'm in Illinois. We're in complete lockdown. And I feel like the models themselves are not a strong enough rationale. So I feel like that's not really being talked about on your show or any show, really.
Well, I mean, actually, I spent the entirety of the first hour of the show and all of today's podcast on this because it's exactly what I'm concerned about, too, is that these models are being trotted out there with a level of certainty that is not of benefit given the lack of data at this point. Now, again, lack of data doesn't mean that we should all just run out there willy-nilly, but it does mean that we should be thinking every day about what point do we have enough data where we can start talking about opening this thing back up. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.